All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started this morning. I want to first of all thank everybody for joining us. I know times are crazy right now with the whole situation going on, so we wanted to just take a few minutes out of the day and talk about and hear from you guys and let you guys share some best practices about how we're all dealing with this situation and making sure that we are serving our customers, which is you, and you are serving your customers, which are your clients. So really want this to be an open dialogue and hear from everybody, because I'm sure everybody's doing something that everybody else could learn from. So, but again, we thank you for joining and looking forward to the conversation. My name is Chris Cole. I am the EVP of Operations at ATG. I've been working here for a little over 12 years, and so I've been with the company for quite a bit of time, and many of you on the call today I have worked with personally. I'm based out of the Little Rock office. We've also got 4 other gentlemen with us today. Don Rasmusson, which is the Technical Director for MEP Services. We've got Matt Linn out of our Oklahoma area. He is a licensed architect and a senior technical specialist. Jason Artley is a senior civil technical specialist out of the North Dakota area. And then representing some customers, we have Raun out of DWO Architects out of Phoenix, and he is the director of IT for that firm. So thanks, guys, for joining us today. The format that we're going to work with today is really just an open forum. And so I was going to start and ask these guys a few questions. I have unmuted everybody, so feel free to jump in. We're watching the chat window, so if you guys want to put something in the chat window as well. But first of all, I just wanted to give us a chance. Dawn, I'll start with you. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of move on to each guy. All
right. Well, thank you, Chris. Excuse me, guys. I am, as Chris mentioned, the Director of MEP Services for ATG. My story with technology goes all the way back to 2002 when I decided to go back to school for mechanical design, graduated from school, and promptly got our first Revit project in the MEP space back in 2006 when nobody knew what Revit or BIM or anything really were. Suffice it to say, we went through the struggles, got through those struggles, right? And that's the reason I'm here today, everyone. It's the reason I got into the reseller channel, is because I felt like no one should have to struggle like that ever again. And if I could do something to help that, I was going to do that. And so that's my role here now, and that's the role that I play, and that's how I try to help our clients. Awesome. Matt, we'll pass it over to you.
Sure. So my name is Matt Linn. I'm a licensed architect, like Chris mentioned. So for the majority of my career, I have been practicing in the traditional role of architect for about 17 years. That includes project manager, BIM manager, and everything in between. So the past year and a half or so, I have made a transition into this BIM consultant role, or a technical specialist here with ATG.
Awesome. Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'm glad here to be joined with my coworkers and my buddy Ron over there. My name is Jason Artley. I am a senior technical specialist on the civil side. My history goes back to about 1996, where I started my career going down an architectural path, and I decided that I kind of liked playing in the dirt more. So I've been doing civil drafting, civil design, and CAD management for a majority of my career, and I just like helping people be more efficient, be more productive, explore technology, and making the technology work for them. And I'm glad that I'm a part of this panel so we can help you also work remote. I've been working remote for a year and a half, and ever since I've been here at ATG, and I think that I might have some insight to offer all of you.
Yeah, awesome. And then last but not least, Ron, tell us a little bit about yourself, friend.
Hi, my name's Raun with DWL Architects. I've been with DWL for about 16 years now. Kind of moved up through the ranks, actually, from receptionist to IT to doing everything from facilities management and all the IT infrastructure. Love helping people, love teaching people. Something I've always done my whole life. I've been doing working on computers since like Tandy 200 back in the early 90s, and early 80s and stuff like that. So yeah, been around for a while, love doing it, enjoy soaking up all this information. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. No, so I thought, Jason talked a little bit about it in the beginning here, and then Matt also. Matt works from home in Oklahoma as well. So I think these gentlemen have been with us for some time and are used to working from a remote environment. I will tell you from my perspective, ATG has had to learn to transition to a purely remote force as well. So having over 130 employees and with the majority of them, 80% of them being home-based or office-based, we have gone through the challenges of technology and everything else to make sure that our staff was equipped and we were still online to serve our customers. Ron, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, you're working out there in the field, you're working for a firm. What steps has your firm taken to make sure that as you move into a remote situation that you guys aren't missing a beat?
Well, being that I'm the only IT person, so IT director, I get to do everything IT in my firm. So I've kind of had the opportunity, and with the firm that I work with, DWL has also given me the opportunity to kind of plan way ahead of time. I started probably about 3 or 4 years back, slowly transitioning, between collaboration for Revit in its early days, BIM 360 in its modern time right now, and, moving projects up to that, implementing VPN, and more robust routers and infrastructure in the office to accommodate, more of a mobile workflow, and bringing out tablets into the office, more laptops. I've been kind of working on that for quite a while. And, since I get to make all the decisions on this stuff, and I work with, a few of the principals at the office to kind of, work through budgets and, timelines and things like that, I've been able to, just really mobilize us in the last 2 years, actually, with moving to larger circuit capacity for our office, upgrading hardware again. We did that in the last 2 years. It's just it's been a continual process, but just, I think having a really good company behind you and giving you the ability to be proactive, with a good budget, to really get these things done. We were able to mobilize this year our whole work staff in 4 days, get them all out of the office, back home and working. And I used a very simple, easy system to set up, and we've been using it for probably, 10 or 12 years before now. That was just go to my PC. It was a quick and easy one, but I've kind of got a good kind of blend of VPN, BIM 360, go to my PC, kind of working in the office to make all this stuff happen. But yeah, definitely Microsoft 365 has been a huge help in integrating, all the different systems and tasks, and keeping the teams collaborating. And then also just having that video chat and having all those team channels and stuff that you can set up to keep everybody, in motion, keeping everybody proactive, and keeping also, I think, user experience is a very, very, very big thing, because depending on how a person feels and how they're, working in their situation, whether it's their house or, anywhere they're working, you got to have a good experience. So I really, really take that one and, make sure everybody understands.
Yeah, Ron, we got a question on the chat. How do you handle employee internet restrictions?
Well, actually, yeah, that's been a big one. So, I guess there's two sides of it. On the DWL side, it's really just a lot of communication and understanding with the employees of what our capabilities are, and then also educating them on kind of how the internet does work in reality, how your home router works, how your home modem works, so they all can help me identify issues at their house. So it was a lot of education. And, everybody was very open with me about what they had at their house, any problems that they've been having at their house. I've been doing the majority of my work for the last 3 weeks has been troubleshooting home networks instead of, infrastructure at the office. Sure. So with that, we've got 50 employees at our firm, well, 47, I think, something like that. So I get to have a little bit more of a intimate relationship with them, you know, as a coworker, you know, for them to share their experiences of how, you know, they're already working at home, or problems that they have at home, or just, you know, just questions. So
Yeah.
everybody, yeah, it's good to just keep an open dialogue.
Yeah, no, for sure. So another question on the chat was, what's the best software for meetings? I will tell you, ATG, as we've expanded, you know, we started in Little Rock. We have an office in Phoenix, and then we also have an office in Minnesota with employees in 10 other states as well. So, you know, we invested several years ago in Zoom technology, Zoom meeting technology, and each of the offices is equipped with the ability to do those meetings. I'm actually in the Little Rock office today. We have found a lot of success with Zoom. It allows you to have the face-to-face communication. Even before this, we were using Zoom technology. We had previously used GoToMeeting, but then had decided to make the switch, and we've been extremely happy with it as a company. Every employee's got a license, and you know, we have team meetings, and we do things like happy hours, just kind of run, like you were saying, to stay engaged with your employees. I think people realize how much they miss the interpersonal stuff in the offices. So I think that's been a big help. What do you guys use for meetings in your firm?
We went from using WebEx for quite a while to transitioning completely over to Teams and that was since last July we did that. Being that Teams has all kinds of integrations and everybody wants to click on everything, you know, it also brought up a lot of curiosity, a lot of integration that I would have never thought of because I'm not an architect, you know. So, you know, it's a good platform, gets the juices flowing in the office, and I've got people doing all kinds of crazy stuff that, you know, it's amazing. But Teams meetings, there's all kinds of compatibility. It's very similar to Zoom, very, very similar. You just have all the other aspects of the Microsoft Office products kind of integrated into them. So,
yeah, Alex asked another question. What's the best software for training fellow employees? Again, we use Zoom. We've actually onboarded a couple new employees over the past couple of weeks during this mess and chaos, and it's been very effective to use Zoom. And you can share screens, you can share documents, people can take control. So we have found that a pretty effective way. In fact, have been engaged with a few customers by using that technology as well. Matt, Jason, Dawn, any comments about using Zoom to work with your counterparts, or how that works for you guys? Any thoughts?
Sure. We use Zoom for every single training we do for Revit. And it's great because I can share my screen. You can see what I'm doing. I'm talking to you. If you have a question, I can try and navigate it from my end while you're watching my screen. But at any point, I can say, why don't you share your screen? Not only can I watch your screen, I can actually take over with my mouse and control yours. So it's really flexible. I love it for training. I mean, it's all I've ever used, but it's perfect and never had any issues.
Yep. Don, Jason?
Same thing here. I've had one issue in the past year and a half with Zoom just having an outage. Otherwise, it's always reliable. I love the ability to control others' computers if need be, and people to interact and ask questions and have that recording capability. It's fantastic. It really is. And I know you've seen probably some things in the headlines recently about Zoom bombing and other security issues, but there's been updates. I think the 2 updates this week alone on handling those security things. So I think it's kind of overblown.
Yeah, and I will tell you, just from working with others and working with people in our own company, one of the things that I like about Zoom is you can see the status of all the different people. And so if I want to call somebody, instead of picking up the phone, I can just hit that call on Zoom. They can pick up on the machine, pops the computer up and the webcam up, and it just makes it more personable. Because again, to Ron's point, I think the biggest thing people are missing, at least in our organization, is just that human interaction with others. I think that's something that this situation has brought out. Don, I'm going to point this one to you. Billy Schrader asked a question. He said, we've been exploring various ways to access data from remote members. Access, copy local, do the work, resync manually to the server. Poses a potential issue of 2 users editing the same file. So we do not want to give up service structure, but rather extend it through the cloud. Suggestions. And I'll open that up to all the guys. And Brad, I thought that might be a good one for you.
Well, sure. Obviously, if it's AutoCAD that we're talking about as an application, we've got some specific challenges that we got to deal with, right?
For Billy, it would be Revit.
For Billy B. Revit, okay. BIM 360, and obviously, you know, Autodesk giving BIM 360 away for free here for a little while is a big help for that. That's the whole idea behind that. The ability to host a central file in the cloud and then have everybody access that, so you're not stepping on each other's toes or doing repetitive work or creating issues for people. For Revit, that's going to be your best solution, period, in my opinion, simply because it's a cloud-based solution. Now, if you look at that from a project standpoint, that solves a lot of project issues, but you still have the other issues of content and operation and things like that. Cloud-based content management systems, similar to CTC's Hive, are the second step in that process. It's one thing to get access to the projects. That's great. We got to make sure our users still have access to the libraries of content that need to go into those projects. In the same vein, they have access to the projects when they're on BIM 360.
Yeah, we've been using BIM 360, well, actually in its infancy, collaboration for Revit. So shoot, I think about 6 years now. And we've found many efficiencies that have come about through teamwork, collaboration, BIM 360 and all the applications that integrate with that platform itself. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Construction side, the documentation side, the CA side, you know, just everything. They've got it it's kind of like a Microsoft 365, you know, how they have everything integrated. Yeah, no, that's definitely the way to go. I'll guarantee that.
So, Ron, I'm going to give this one to you. Somebody asked a question. Brian asked, he's interested to hear about solutions for remote access to staff's machines when admin rights are required for installing software. We've been using TeamView, but haven't been pleased with it recently. What do you guys use to help with that process?
Well, about a year ago, I changed all of our endpoint protection software, so antivirus, spyware, all that stuff, that's all, you know, part of a package now, to Komodo software, which has this awesome admin console to it that I install this agent on everybody's machine in the office and any machine that's an office, you know, computer. And it gives me the ability at any time with this little console to do a takeover session. And it has been absolutely flawless. And I've been using it for like 9 months now, and it's all part of their endpoint security package. It also comes with like a help desk ticketing system that's also helped the office, especially since we're all apart, for them to submit tickets and things like that. So, I mean, that was on the admin side. I can push out updates. I can monitor everybody's computers. I mean, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch here, but it's impressive what I've been able to do with that. But I've just been kind of just really happy with that.
Okay. So just anybody out there on the webinar, I'd love to hear some feedback. You know, what are some things that this situation has made your firm look at? So, you know, it sounds like Ron's firm was kind of ahead of the curve a little bit and was taking actions to make them more of a remote organization. What are some things, people on the line, that your firm's done to, you know, or is looking to do now since this epidemic's happened? Someone said on the chat they're using GoToMyPC now.
Yep.
Yeah, remote control software is going to become a big part of how we move forward with this, because there's just certain things you're not going to be able to walk people through on the phone.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, no, I'm between my Komodo software and the Team software, because Teams and Zoom are just about neck and neck as far as features go. I haven't been able to find many differences between the two.
Yeah, we actually have, we use Microsoft 365 as well, and we have Team. We just really like the functionality of Zoom. And yeah. I like having the Zoom rooms in the office, and I don't know, I like it's a simple product to use. We've looked at possibly moving over to Teams since we're paying for it, but I like the functionality that you get with Zoom. Ron, have you guys ever looked at any like VDI?
Yes, that's the reason why we moved to collaboration for Revit in its earlier form. We killed VDI sessions with a project that we're working on, an airport project. And in its, I mean, we were killing collaboration for Revit servers with the same project too. But that was 6 years ago. Technology's come a long way since then. So, I mean, I've heard some good things out there in the world about it. It's just moving to BIM 360 kind of solved all those issues.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we tried it to do from a training perspective to just use the VDI for when we go to a customer and train, and all the techs, especially on the civil side, said it was not a good user experience. I was curious in the production world, in the world, what the file was there. And I'll give this to Jason or Dawn or Matt, anyone. Billy's asking the differences, or what's the pros and cons between remote desktop, VPN, and then Ron, also, this is in your wheelhouse, and go to my PC. So what's the pros and cons? Why one? What's better? What have you seen? Obviously, Matt and Jason and Dawn, as you spend time in the industry, you probably have used some of these solutions. So I'll open that up to you guys.
Well, it's my understanding that remote desktop and go to my PC are pretty similar. They're doing the same thing in essence. You're remoting into somebody else's desktop or to your desktop virtually from your home location, right? So in essence, you have a remote control, and you're using that remote control to control the computer at your desk. Ron, am I off with go to my PC?
The only difference between the two really is one is going to be a cloud-based and one's going to be a premise-based solution.
Sure.
So one would require licensing and Windows servers. The other one is just a cloud license to go to my PC.
But when you're doing that work, in essence, what you're doing is you're using a remote control as your PC. The heavy lifting, as I understand it, is the PC on the other side at your desk. That's the one that's with the processing power and everything else. So, technically, if you could in essence use a very cheap PC at home to run a very expensive PC someplace else that's actually doing all the processing power. But when it comes to the VPN and getting access to files and things like that, over a cloud-based solution, or I should say rather a cloud-based solution versus a VPN for file management, in time savings alone and uploading and downloading times, you're going to see probably a 45 to 50% reduction in those times when you go to something cloud-based versus VPN. Obviously, there's lots of things that come into that. There are lots of things that come into play there. But that's been my experience for cloud-based solutions versus a VPN solution.
And then
in general, if you could avoid platforms that do rely on your bandwidth, it's better to avoid those, like VPN. They do work, but it's relying strictly on your bandwidth. So if you have a great internet at home, maybe it's fine. If you don't, that will slow you down.
Yeah, there's a lot of settings and a lot of configuration that you can use to help for solutions, low bandwidth solutions. I've got people on 1.5 by 768K in North Carolina out in the middle of nowhere, and they're using Go to My PC and the VPN solution. So it's a lot about equipment on either end and configuring that equipment to work, for many different solutions. Because, we can get into the nuts and bolts of that stuff. I love that stuff. Another thing to really bring up in regards to this is think about the compliance factor that comes along with managing your own equipment or, having solutions out there. A lot of people with remote desktop. If you're using remote desktop through a VPN, you're using two mechanisms to make that happen, but it's a more secure way of making that happen. I don't recommend ever using remote desktop as a solution, that sits out at the edge of your network, because that gives there's a lot of compliance issues with that, and then there's a lot of holes that can be gotten into.
Yeah, I will tell you, Ron, we've looked at, so we've had a couple of clients that were pretty heavy in VPN that we all have end users that don't change their passwords and have very weak passwords. We've had several customers over my time at ATG, that their VPNs were hacked and people got inside their servers and just, caused chaos in the servers and locked files and deleted project files and created a mess. I will tell you, internally, we've gone to with having so many employees out now working remotely, for using VPN, we've gone to a dual factor authentication. So anytime you log into the VPN, you got to put your password in, but then there's an app on our phones to get a code. So we have our concern for the VPN, and we've seen firms like this as well, is just from a security perspective. Because I think, when we started asking questions of the users, there was a lot of password ones out there and welcome ones that they got from when they first started. From a security perspective, that's a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that can be accommodated through a group policy with your IT person, and doing a password complexity group policy. That with 2FA is definitely the way to go nowadays. There's a lot of companies out there that actually will help with that, doing single sign-on and stuff like that too.
Yep. So Raz, Matt, Lynn, question for you, and Ron, this is for anybody because this is more of a architectural or a building question. So Jason, I'm not sure what you could add to it, but Chris is asking about file storage inside of BIM 360. So does BIM 360 do a decent job of taking that on? Models are one thing, but when you add photos, marketing material, etc., talk a little bit about the file storage functionality out there for those things that Chris was talking about. Raz, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, Docs can handle a lot of that. So when you talk about BIM 360, there's lots of modules that go inside of BIM 360, guys. Docs is one of those modules, and Docs can definitely handle everything that's not model focused. Not to keep bringing up Hive, but Hive can also manage a lot of that content for you too. Hive is not just for Revit. Hive can take a bunch of different file types. There's lots of cloud-based file management systems out there that you can leverage for anything that's not specifically an Autodesk product, let's say. But BIM 360 would be a nice spot that could do that and leverage special features for Revit.
Right. I would just echo what Raz says. I mean, there's Dropbox, there's OneDrive, there's Google Drive, there's Hive. But if you're using Revit, BIM 360 makes sense because that way everything's in the same place. And I'll quickly tell you about our experience of coming to BIM 360 at my previous firm. So we had two servers, and one was in one office and one was in another remote office. And those two servers overwrote each other every night as a backup system. So both servers held information from both offices overwriting each other. And this was kind of C4R was very new. So we decided to just continue doing Revit like we always knew. We had a central file on the server. And then we came in the next day and we're like, what happened to our work? Why do we keep missing information? That's because the servers were actually overwriting each other and overwriting that work and pulling us back in time. So we really encourage BIM 360 for the use of Revit because it handles that central file seamlessly, obviously. So we were kind of forced to move in that direction, but it's been great ever since.
And I'll add on that Bluebeam itself has a studio projects solution that would also store marketing material. It doesn't have to be a PDF file. It can handle, JPEGs. It can handle Word docs. It can handle a bunch of things. It necessarily can't view them all, but it can provide a cloud-based storage solution to allow people to have that protected way to pick that up and collaborate. And also BIM 360 is now a civil thing too. So don't limit that when we talk about this storage solution. It doesn't work quite as well yet because it operates different than Revit does, but it certainly works well for civil.
And Plan 3D for that matter too. Plan 3D in 2021 is coming back.
Exactly. So we're at an exciting time that there's almost too many solutions, but everybody has to figure out what's going to work best for their firm.
So Jason, that's a good question, and that's something I was going to bring up if it didn't just come up naturally. BIM 360 for civil, fairly new product. If there's people on the call here that are using Civil 3D, how can that help these guys? What's the feature set? Kind of real high level. How could a firm using Civil 3D utilize BIM 360?
Well, the big thing is, BIM 360 came out with 2020.1, and it wasn't super great. And then now with 2020.3, the latest version, it works really well. And this would allow people to move their projects to BIM 360 very quickly and be cloud-based within a matter of minutes. You don't need to worry about, how you're going to virtualize your server. If you had a project, throw it up on BIM 360. You can work remotely very quickly, still connect to your data shortcuts, And all it takes is, you know, a BIM 360 account as well as the Autodesk desktop connector, and you're up and running. So it came out fairly quick, and you know, we're less than a year into this, but it's been pretty impressive so far. So if you're in a position where you need to quickly, you know, virtualize your projects, you know, where you're disconnected from the server entirely, BIM 360 is going to be your solution.
And that brings up a great point, Jason. Like if everybody on the call, if you've been exploring a cloud solution or something like that a month ago, 2 months ago, go back and explore it again, because a lot has changed in the past 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Updates have come out. You've seen a lot of changes so that we can get additional functionality that the industry desperately needs. So just because we looked at it before doesn't mean it's the same thing it was a month ago. So obviously be willing to go back and take a second look at some of those tools.
So I got a couple of questions here. Billy's Schrader's asking, can any one solution work for both AutoCAD and Revit? Do any solutions sync back to our server? That's the one aspect that we're not finding. Feedback on that.
Well, Hive can do that. The thing with Hive is that you're not going to be able to edit, save up to the cloud, and share, right? Hive is going to be set up as a consumption-based tool. So it's administrators set it up, users consume that. That's the way Hive is intended to work. We can, as you know, as I did that webinar a couple weeks ago, we can bend those rules in a couple ways to wring more efficiency out of the software. But that's a really good question, Billy. And to my knowledge, there is not one solution that does all of it. Unless you want to do something like BIM 360 and you want to take something like Civil 3D or Plant 3D and use it like regular old AutoCAD.
So we have a Chris Eakins ask, what's the best solution right now for managing work on AutoCAD electrical projects remotely? So another AutoCAD-based workflow.
Man, with AutoCAD electrical, that's a tough one.
Yep.
Probably don't need to tell you that AutoCAD electrical has been relatively ignored here for the past couple years. Don't know what the future holds for AutoCAD electrical, but right now there's nothing existing for cloud-based solutions for AutoCAD electrical that I know of. And the conversations I've had with people at Autodesk, I don't think that there's anything coming in the future, to be completely honest. But again, things are changing every day. Fusion is a great platform that everything's based on, and it.
Uh-oh. I think Don Raz is having some internet issues.
Max Headroom Syndrome.
So, good question, Ron. This may be a good one for you. Chris Saney is asking, with using BIM 360, does that offload enough of the computing that a low-power laptop can be used for design work?
Not really, because you still need the full functionality of Revit and its graphic capacities to facilitate any model. I mean, you would be severely limiting yourself to something like a 50 meg and under project, if you wanted to use a low-cost laptop with, like, say, an Intel graphics card. But to tell you the truth, I've been finding really, really good solutions out there at some low cost that can facilitate all of that stuff anyways. You just got to look.
Okay. So Jennifer asked, BIM 360 is a bit costly. Are they looking at more affordable options after the trial periods? Jennifer, I don't think so. Depending on what you're wanting to use BIM 360 for, Docs has some functionality out there if you're just wanting to look at the models. But if you're looking to do collaboration, and again, I'll pass that to Don and Matt. If you're looking to do collaboration, I think BIM 360 is probably or design is probably your best platform.
I'd like to say something really quick on that. Even though the price you see per user looks like it's costly, being that we came from a VDI solution to collaboration for Revit, I did a lot of the cost analysis in the early times, and over time, the amount of server maintenance, personnel costs to maintain that server, keeping the server up to date, which is almost an annual thing nowadays, you really start to see that price climb for an on-prem solution versus a BIM 360 solution. And then all the compliance aspects that come into it with that, security, that BIM 360 starts to actually come down in price in reality to what an on-prem solution that you have to maintain yourself is going to do. So just cost analysis, really good thing to run through anyways.
That's a
Yeah,
great
sorry,
point.
Civil 3D was what her main design tool was. I just assumed Revit, so no. And I mean, and it's, I will tell you, they just started this year, released the pieces for Civil 3D, so I expect that functionality to only get more robust as Autodesk releases different feature sets. Alex asked, what computer hardware is really necessary for home office-based work?
I'll give you a quick spec laptop for you. I'm not trying to sell Dell products, but it seems to be what's been working for me for the last, like, literally 5 years. Dell G5 with a NVIDIA 1060 GTX. That's what I buy, and I had actually purchased like 4 of them before all this stuff happened and ended up handing them out. And I have some users on BIM 360 at home using those devices. And I think I paid under $1,000 a piece for them. So,
nice.
Yeah, if you look at that, the specs on those the i7, it'll give you a general rundown of, you know, probably a minimum spec for that.
What kind of video cards on those laptops?
It's the NVIDIA 1060 GTX. Well, one consideration we made, instead of going to like a Precision or, you know, one of the actual workstation graphics, you know, workstations, was the fact that we do Lumion and some other other animation and rendering software that use ray tracing now, and even Revit is the same. It uses more ray tracing. And the GTX NVIDIA cards work way better than the Quattro cards in regards to Revit architecture. I don't know if that's the same for all of the disciplines, because we don't do much civil or mechanical or structural or anything like that. But for the architectural side and the graphics, we went to more of a gaming style, I guess you could say, laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, so Marshall Christopherson asked, what happened to Revit Server? So Revit Server, I believe, is still out there. I want to say in my last meetings I had with Autodesk, they were looking to. I don't think it's supported anymore by Autodesk. But
it's in the sunset period.
Yeah, I think it's still out there. I don't want to, you know, make an assumption, but I have a feeling as they continue to invest in the cloud products, you'll see Revit Server kind of go to the wayside. But I do know it is not supported right now, but it is still out there as a solution that you can use. So Ron, what are you seeing? I mean, what's your first seeing around projects? Are your customers continuing with projects? Kind of what are you guys seeing from that front?
Full load. I mean, everybody's pushing forward. We have a lot of stuff in different phases, and CDs and CA, you know, all the way SDs and DDs. I mean, brand new contracts. I mean, things are still flowing out in the industry. They have slowed down site visits and also require you reporting with them before you're going to go to site visits. You know, a lot of the contractors are implementing that social distancing aspect for, you know, all of their workers, but also people coming onto the site so they can minimize how many people are there. There's just a lot of coordination more about your site visit now for projects that are going on. But I guess, I don't know, I guess it would depend on the industry that you're in.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, sir. What kind of projects do you guys work on?
Well, we have a lot of aviation all over the nation right now, and then healthcare is another big one, and higher education, some medical universities, stuff like that. So a lot of those projects are still ongoing because of the fact of what they are: transportation, healthcare, and then some tribal stuff too, I believe, and GSA. Kind of all over the place in the commercial world. Okay,
awesome. Someone's asking, Ron, if we can share those laptop specs on the chat window. If you wouldn't mind typing those in that chat window, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, let me, I'll go check it out real quick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So Jason, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the civil world. It seems like most of the questions have been around Revit and AutoCAD. So, you know, from what you've spoken with customers, you know, what are you seeing out there as kind of best practice during this transition time with civil firms?
Well, it's been certainly interesting because a lot of civil firms, to be honest, don't really chase technology. They've been using the same stuff for years, and it's worked fine. But now we were kind of thrown into this scenario where we really have genuine issues we need to solve. And BIM 360 has kind of been hanging out saying, hey guys, look at me, look at me. And guess what? It works pretty good. So we're seeing more civil firms start to ask more questions about BIM 360, seeing more civil firms, you know, look at Bluebeam Studio as a way to collaborate, and, you know, it's making them think about how they manage their content. It's making them think, you know, kind of like how Revit users have been thinking for years now. So it's been pretty interesting to see how they're suddenly starting to care about technology and what's going on around them. And we're starting to do some more testing with our clients with BIM 360. We're starting to help them use more cloud-based solutions like BIM 360 and using that not only for Civil 3D, but also for InfraWorks. And start thinking about training and how they're going to get their users up to speed on this new workflow. They haven't had the time frame that the architectural side has had for so many years. So it's been quite interesting, and it's pretty encouraging, actually.
Okay. Don, question for you. I know it seems like as I've talked to the sales team and I've talked to the support team and some of the techs, it seems like the common question we get is how in a Revit environment, how are people sharing their content and making sure that we're maintaining standards and consistency around content? You know, if you're talking to a Revit organization who has gone remote and doesn't really have a solution in place, what's best practice? I mean, I know you've been in many conversations with customers about this when they call and ask. Best practice for, especially from an MVP side, lots of content out there. You know, what's a good workflow on that?
Sure. Well, if you don't have a solution for your content management, right? So say, for example, you have everything stored on your server right now. COVID came, everybody's remote. You don't have a cloud-based solution, but you got everybody a VPN. You spun that off, and everybody can gain access to the servers. That's at least something. But every time we're going and grabbing a piece of content, it's taken, 2 to 5 minutes for that piece of content to become live and for me to be able to use, right? If you're going to be against buying a solution because you think that what we're doing is temporary and you don't want to invest in that, the best way that I've found to get around something like that are container files, pre-set up Revit environments with most of everything you're going to need preloaded into that project so you can just rock. Now, the bad side to that is, of course, if you do that, that template or that starter project is extremely heavy and you wind up redacting and removing a lot of stuff from that. So that's not necessarily the best solution, but it's a workable solution. There's new aspects of BIM 360 docs that allow you to put families and manage a little bit of family content, if you will, inside of the BIM 360 doc side. But my preferred solution would be a cloud-based management for content solution, something like Hive. There's other content cloud-based formulation solutions out there. Hive isn't the only one. One thing I do find better about Hive versus other things is that as far as Revit is concerned, Hive has more functionality with some Revit aspects that I don't see in the other competitive tools. If you guys have been on my webinars before, from a plumbing, piping perspective, groups are a huge thing that Hive can do, where it retains all the system values and parameters inside of that group while it sits on Hive. So when I put it back into Revit, everything's retained. I haven't seen other solutions be able to do something like that in the past.
In addition to Hive, another good thing is the instant consumption. So you can browse, you can type in, just like Google, type in door, type in ceiling, whatever it is you're looking for, and you get big old thumbnails to see. And then double click, boom, it's in your project. So you don't have to go download a file. You don't have to go find a path. Just double click and it's in your project. So like Raz mentioned, Hive does have a lot of functionality that is really great, specifically for Revit.
Yeah, and it's set up to be consumption based, like I was mentioning earlier. So your administration can really control the content that you're giving your users access to. and your users have tools that they can use to comment back on that content about how useful it is or things need to be changed. So it becomes really a single source management solution for Revit content.
And you don't have to be worried about organizing folders because there isn't a folder structure. You're just searching for you want and taking it. There's no folder structure at all, which really simplifies the entire game.
Yeah. So Jason, here's a civil question for you. So Eric said they're experiencing lag while they're using remote desktop. Is there a better way of working, or is there a way to reduce this? Most users' issues come from our CAD users. We are using Civil 3D with large surfaces and aerials.
You know, even a large surface or an aerial on a C drive is going to be kind of slow in Civil 3D. It takes a lot of processing power. And when you add that whole bandwidth issue to a remote desktop or even VDI for that, you're just making things worse. That's going to require strictly more horsepower. That's the only thing that's going to make Civil 3D run better. I was just typing into the chat, you know, not entirely a plug here, but a lot of us here at ATG use BIMbox laptops. And they are, you know, considerably more expensive than the Dells that Raun was talking about, but they'll run circles around anything that I've ever used. And it's been truly remarkable. It's even caused problems with my training because it goes so fast and it will handle large surfaces so easy that I have to wait for my attendees for their computers to catch up before we can move on. So that's one of those things where you really, more horsepower is always better. And, you know, I'm a car geek anyway, so there's always room for more horsepower, and that really does help.
Yeah. Joe made a comment that Bluebeam doesn't work too well for them over the cloud. They use PlanGrid. Seems to work better from them in the cloud. And there's been several comments throughout the chat room specific to PlanGrid. So PlanGrid obviously has got some good solutions out there for people to be using. Any comments from the attendees? Anything they want to share? Challenges that they've really seen? Ways they overcome it? Anything around the industry? Any feedback? Well, we have 12 minutes left to go for the rest of the session. Anything particular you guys want to talk about?
Are you wanting people to unmute themselves?
I think they're all unmuted.
Well, most attendees are on mute. Feel free to unmute yourself if you've got a question.
Yeah, we have got some people with their hands up. Feel free, everyone.
Yeah, fire away, guys.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
We got you.
This is Danya Tabor Hansen. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, working in restaurant design. And I was wondering if anyone else is seeing a slowdown in your workloads, or are you releasing personnel because of the events that are going on, or is everybody maintaining? I was just curious.
I have not really talked to many other firms since all this has started, just because my head's been so busy with keeping the office running. I don't know. Yeah, sorry, I don't have an answer.
I'm seeing, so, you know, I do have some more conservative firms who are playing it safe and they're, you know, reducing their workloads. But, you know, ATG, we're hiring like crazy. I see a lot of people hiring like crazy. To us, it's just made things busier, honestly. I see a lot of firms that are taking on more work and they're just going after it. And some firms are being very, you know, trepidatious about this. And, you know, that might prove to be a good strategy in the long run. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of slowdown from the civil side.
And I haven't seen a whole lot on MEP either. We are just simply moving forward like nothing has changed, at least in the region that I'm in. I've heard rumors about residential contracting and construction being impacted, but at least up here in the upper Midwest, I haven't seen anything change from a contracting construction perspective. It's all going on business as usual.
I'm in the restaurant business, and we have seen a turn down on some of the customers, but we're nationwide, and I know we have laid off some designers and furloughed some. In some other areas in the South, we've been able to keep hours all intact, but we're taking a reduced workload by the designers are working 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think right
So
now
we're
a lot
trying
of
to
that
maintain our company.
Yeah. Understandable, Danya. And I think a lot of this right now is just going to be regional, because every state's dealing with it differently.
Yeah, I mean, and the customers that I've spoken to, I know of one other firm that released some of its staff, and it was primarily in the casino hospitality was the main industry they supported. I believe that would make sense, but you know, a lot of firms that I've spoken with, you know, are kind of taking the approach of kind of just seeing what's out there, and many have said that they've had to push back a little bit. So I think it depends on the region and also the industry that they serve. Ron, it's good to hear you guys talk about that you guys are staying busy. There's a couple of folks on the chat that said electrical contractor here. He said we're busy, no slowdown. Joe talked about they have not reduced any staff on their side. So you know. I think a lot depends on the industry that we serve. So, anything else? Any other questions? The last 8 minutes.
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, it was a question. Is there a good spot or somewhere where you could a demonstration from like start to finish on how something on a simple project would actually flow?
For what piece of software, Paul?
For either. Usually, most of my stuff is in AutoCAD MEP.
Okay, so it's like a workflow for AutoCAD MEP from a remote perspective?
Yeah, or even something that's on the cloud.
Okay. Okay. We can definitely look at putting a webinar together like that for you. Walking through the steps of what that might look like. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing, kind of seeing how it actually works instead of seeing something how they think it should work. Seeing an actual demonstration is really what helps out.
Yeah, an MEP focused demonstration, right?
Yeah.
Do you use the fab at all, Paul?
No, I do not.
Okay, so it's just straight AutoCAD MEP. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, that answered my question. I was asking if it was strictly AutoCAD.
Yeah, if the fab's introduced, that's a whole nother bag of issues, a whole nother ball of wax, guys. So for those of you who have, if you're on the call, if you're using the fab software, that's a whole nother set of challenges, guys, because that library is as big as it is and that ITM content acts the way it does. If you guys have questions on that, go ahead and feel free to reach out to me after the phone call or however you'd like. We can discuss how we strategize around that.
Any other questions from the attendees?
I do see a question from Billy Schrader. Are we offering a consulting service to assess individual firms? That's not what today's call is about. We are a solutions provider. We can help you with things like that, but that's not what this call is focused on. If you would like us to help you with, certainly give us a call. Be happy to help.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, guys, I'm going to ask each of you one last question before we release everyone back to their home kitchen or outside or wherever they might be. Making the snowman up there in North Dakota. So Matt, what in your mind, what can we do during this downturn to make sure that, we're making the best use of our time, or make it as lucrative as possible considering all things given?
Okay. Well, I mean, as we talked earlier, a lot of people haven't experienced the downturn, which is great. But I know a lot of people, both in our industry and in every industry, have experienced the downturn. So I like to think of it as, what can I do today that will ultimately make money tomorrow? So that's the big question, right? So I'm a bit biased because I'm a standards guy. But if done properly, really good standards that are in place today will in fact make money tomorrow. So that's how you have to think about it. So most people, when they think of standards, they think this is like a specific way your drawing should look in printed form, which is true. That is standards. But drawing should also, they also should have a look between projects, which is another form of standards. But your standards should also include an established workflow for projects. And these are the standards that can make money tomorrow. So, so thinking in terms of architecture specifically, what's the low-hanging fruit? The most obvious, in my opinion, is your Revit template and your specs, right? What are some details that you are seeing in most of your projects? You got door details, window details, partition types. Now's the time, if it is a downturn for you, create your detail library, because that will pay back when the projects come back around. And as we know, Revit specifically is built on a parametric infrastructure. So this means we can custom build a workflow that streamlines our process that is custom to our firms and our clients, right? So here's an example. Revit families, both system family and component families, all have assembly codes and a read-only assembly description. Okay, these are built-in parameters. You don't have to custom make these. So your Revit model knows everything that's in your model, right? So maybe you build a schedule that will ultimately turn into your specification table of contents, right? That's one way to really streamline things. Or take it a step further, we could start to schedule all the parameters or options that ultimately your spec writer needs to know to write the spec. So maybe we develop a workflow for that. Or maybe your workflow actually starts to write the spec itself. So if you are experiencing a downturn, this is the time to be creative. What can I improve on my standards, specifically with a workflow that will turn into money moving forward?
Yeah, that's good stuff. No, I mean, I think using it now to make your process better, I think that's good stuff. We have one last question in here. Rich asked, any advice for using BIM 360 desktop connector? Rich, any kind of more feedback on what you're maybe struggling with, or what your issue with it is? Raz, Matt, any kind of advice on the BIM 360 desktop connector? Raun?
Sometimes there is a lag. In your tray on your computer, there's a little shortcut to your desktop connector. Every now and then, things might be sitting in the tray. So go to your pending actions. A lot of times things will sit in your pending actions until you tell them to move forward. So that is one advice I have for the desktop connector. You can refresh drives, because some of these things don't happen automatically. So is there anything more specific about the desktop connector?
And another thing while we're waiting is just make sure it's updated. You will get notifications when your desktop connector has an update available. Be on top of that, because it does make a difference.
He says files don't always upload completely, numerous errors.
I'm sorry, they don't upload what?
It said files don't always upload completely, and numerous errors.
Oh. I have a better luck.
Revit environment or a civil environment?
I can understand why some of the errors would pop up in a Revit environment if the Revit model isn't connected, or you're generating lots of silly typical Revit errors. But that shouldn't impact upload. That should just give you a report.
He said project files, not Revit. Jason?
Okay. I gotta head out, but thanks everybody.
Jason,
if you've got civil questions, please send them my way. Any of us can pass on my contact information, but I'd love to talk more civil stuff with you. Feel free to get a hold of me, but I've got to split for another engagement. So thanks for coming, and we'll let these guys wrap up.
Thanks, Jason. Take care, buddy. So he said project files, not Revit.
Okay, so in general, I've had better luck using the web interface of BIM 360, and then I have my, your desktop connector is mirroring what's happening in the web anyways, but I've had better luck just going to the web interface and uploading those files. Now, if it is a project file that you're actually collaborating on, you do have to initiate collaboration through Revit. You can't simply upload it. And you probably know that, but I just want to hit that home because a lot of people try to collaborate and they can't find the file, and that's because it wasn't initiated through Revit. But other than that, non-project files, I've had better luck with the web interface.
And I can echo that. I can echo what Matt said.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's 1 o'clock. Ron, I very much appreciate taking time out of your schedule to join us. A lot of good information. I really appreciate the time. Matt, Don, always appreciate what you guys do for ATG. And customers, I hope everybody stays safe. If you have any questions for us, comments, thoughts, reach out to us. And we're here to help. So hope everyone stays safe and has a great, happy Easter. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.